All right. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Welcome to the first ever podcast for Journeymen.
Yes,
So this is
sir.
this is the Journeymen podcast, our first one, being produced by our men's ministries at Patmos. So I'm excited. It's going to be an
Yeah,
exciting subject today.
we want to get this welcome in, but I think the phone and your laptop is got to mute one of them.
Everything is muted on my end. The laptop is muted, so all is muted currently. Can
All
you
right,
hear
let me
me?
mute up.
All right. Good. Awesome. So, welcome to the Journeyman's podcast today. We're going to be kicking it off with a very serious topic, one that you've probably heard about everywhere on television shows, also social media, and it's going to be about masculinity. The difference between biblical masculinity and toxic masculinity, and what qualities do we want to show, and also what do we want to make sure that people see within us, whether it is biblical masculinity, or do we want to carry those qualities of what Jesus Christ holds dear and how he told us to behave as men. So we want to try and get into that topic and make sure that we kind of go through that and just kind of make sure that we know exactly what we look for when we talk about biblical masculinity. So I have Christian, Don, and Brandon with me, and they're going to be here with us talking about this subject and trying to sift through and make sure that we have a great conversation about biblical masculinity today. All right. What I'd like to do before we even get into the topic, though, is I'd like to start out with prayer. Everything starts with prayer so that we can have a great show and a great day for the rest of the day. All right. So if we can bow our heads. Father God, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to be able to speak to these men. I'd like to thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak to others as well, sharing your word with them. Also, I'd like to thank you for giving us the platform that we may be able to go out and spread your message to others, not just in our circle, but to anyone who feels the need to be closer to you. God, I thank you once again for waking us up this morning so that we can spread your message. I also want to say, I hope that everyone that is listening right now finds themselves in good health, good mental health. It is Men's Health this month, and we hope men's mental health this month, and we hope that everyone finds himself in good mindset. Um, and we hope that we can provide a message that sets them up for success in their future. Thank you very much for giving us this opportunity once again. And through your son, Jesus Christ, we hope to be effective in being a blessing to someone out there. Through your son's name, Jesus Christ. Amen. All right. So
Amen.
one of the biggest questions that we have in terms of biblical masculinity is, you know, what is biblical masculinity to begin with?
So, man, that's a big question. Because a lot of times when you look at different parts of the Bible, I think you see different types of characteristics expressed through different people. You got some men who they're the Samsons, and we might go to that quickly and be like, yeah, that was the man's man. Give me the jawbone, and I'm handling business. Um, or you just got like the difference between David and Solomon, different types of ways of leadership. So Man, I think that's maybe the question we really just need to dive into and see what, what images do we see in the Bible that show masculinity, and if there's does God give just like a definition, just like this one good clear definition? This is what I expect you to be as a man.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. That's a good start. Um, so when we talk about biblical masculinity in terms of today's era, Don, how do you see that being an effective way of carrying out your everyday life? What does that mean to you?
Well, for me personally, within my own experiences at my age, just only being 20, I feel like right now, I feel like there are five, probably five principles that I've seen that I'm currently in that the play five principles that I can get to. And I feel like the first one would be humility before God, control of your appetites, things you like, protecting your family, that's I'm not there yet. Providing and leading, I'm not there yet, but there are places that I want to get to. But I feel like currently I'm at a stage where having a certain humility before God and being able to control, you know, whether it's anything that has to do with what do I eat, what do I consume on a daily, and even my sexual desires, like having to be able to control that at a young age and understanding that, this is it's important that I have a certain discipline about this because from here on out
Mhm.
it would build me up into the man that would be able to lead a family. So I would try to like, learn from older men like you are as well. And honestly, yeah, just being humble, learning to be a young leader now. So when you get older, you'd be seasoned and you'd be, um, at a place where, God has built you up from where you are, whether you're younger than me at my age, and as you get, as you increase in age.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. I mean, that's important. A lot of things there that you've said that's important, controlling your appetites. I know for me, at your age, that didn't ring true, right?
This
It's
man is 20 and he has five principles. There's five principles. He's
right.
20.
So
Okay.
at I mean, my principle.
Brandon, you had your five? Did you have your five?
I only had one. Get home alive. That was my only principle at
Oh
20 and
man.
21.
Listen,
Right,
listen,
right.
and to be able to at least frame them, like I'm sure we had things that kind of guided us, but man, that's some
Yeah,
maturity right there.
Yeah,
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And for one of them to for what you just said in terms of appetite, but you mentioned that from all different types of angles. You're not just talking about what I'm eating, but you're talking about
Mhm.
like even like desires of the flesh and sexual
yeah,
desires, things like that. Like man, that's huge. That's
Mhm.
huge at any age, I think.
yeah, yeah. Especially because in my generation, like it's in the music, it's what we watch, it's everywhere now because the media is just like everywhere you turn. Like I remember in back when we were doing Bible study, and by the way, I recommend any man that's watching right now, please attend the men's ministry Bible study. It really brings value. But even when I remember them saying, I just lost my train of thought. Um, I just lost my train of thought. I just
It's
lost
all
my
right.
train of thought.
It's
It's
all
absolutely
good, man. It's
fine.
all good. It's all good. It's
It
all
only
good.
gets worse as you get
Oh man.
Thank you for letting him know that he has a lot more to look forward to, Chris. Appreciate that.
Yeah,
so 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 a lot of things that we face as men kind of shapes us throughout our lives. And for me, it's one of the biggest thing that shaped my life was that first time the first time I experienced unbridled violence, you know.
Mm.
Mm,
So it literally, I know in when Paul spoke to the Corinthians, it says that we should be watchful, right? And the big thing about that is, there's all sorts of being watchfulness, right? altogether. And from a very young age, I understood violence. I understood, you know, what that looks like, you know, the mentality behind it. And so for me to experience that at such a young age, it was it was something that was part of my life for a while, um, until, you know, things change, and I grew up and I was able to go different places and be in different communities and atmosphere. But it was one of the first thing that kind of was a shock, right? And I could either act in a violent way, or I can choose to go the complete opposite. And some of those principles you mentioned were unknowingly, of course, because I didn't necessarily had it framed the way you did, but some of those principles you mentioned guided the way I thought about how I want to carry myself when I got to your age. Um, and it didn't really dawn on me that I was thinking about it. It just it was just an image thing. How do I want people to see me, and how do I want them to
Yeah.
perceive me?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because in public, perception is the biggest thing. You can't control someone's perception.
Right.
You can only hope to influence it. And in terms of perception, today we have so many different ways of perceiving men. But what are some of the qualities that we hold dear to ourselves in terms of letting people know that you know, we are God-fearing men, that we're faithful, that we try to be more like Jesus Christ.
Real quick before you hop on that, like when you said how your name, how you're portraying, you're making sure your name, was you got a good reputation. That had brought into my mind because I've been reading Proverbs. I read it. I read through the whole thing, but when I read it, I didn't really like slow down and understand it because I know people
Mm,
are saying Proverbs and Psalms is the book of wisdom, and I read it
right.
once and I thought, okay, yeah, I'm wise now, but it's like that's not how it works. You feel me?
No, no,
So
no, no.
like I have to come back and slowly read it again. And what I'm trying to get at is that when you had said that, it brought me to Proverbs 22 verse 1, when it says, "A good name is to be more desired than great wealth. Favor is better than silver and gold."
Mm.
So
Mm,
I feel like especially in nowadays generations with media being so readily accessible, it's like your name and your reputation would meet people before you do.
Yeah.
And that's why it's very, very important as a man to uphold,
Yeah.
yourself, your values around other people because you don't know who's
Yeah.
talking, who's looking.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just wanted to hop on that. But,
And I love that. I love that. What was big for me, and I think I could just absorb this maybe in my journey through like church and just being around different people, but character was so important. And I don't know, it was just even as a young person, I don't know if I could articulate it as its character, but I just knew like I saw a lot of people just kind of fronting or they putting on a good show, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
you got to see different sides coming out. You like, whoa, I thought you was this way.
Mm-hmm.
And then so I don't know, just having that like that core, that like that character, I felt like that's what a Christian was. Like that's what a Christian man is. I looked up to some of these some guys that just really were solid. They were consistent. They were about their family. They were about service.
Mm-hmm.
They worked hard. But it wasn't something they did for a season. It was what they did consistently. And so I felt like that was like you had a solid character. Then you were what Christ was calling you to be. You may not have had all the money. You may not have had all the things, but like if I saw you had character, I'm like, this person is somebody, you know?
Mm-hmm.
mm,
Yeah.
mm,
I'll just say this, man. It's it's so funny we bringing up how we came up and how we put a big value on character. The thing about it is when I was coming up, when I would see these men of great repute and how they carry themselves and how they purport themselves as men, how people listen to them and how they dress,
Mm,
even
yep,
even up to the way and how their voice reflects on the highs and lows. I wanted those qualities.
Mm.
But the thing about it is, we wanted, or at least for me, I wanted what was already outside, but it's actually the inward work that got them all those things.
Yeah.
So you try to emulate the outside stuff as opposed to going to get to know the person and understand what kind of growth he had to endure for himself to get him to where he is, to just be purporting these things on a daily. So I start to dress like some of my role models, right? I start to act based on what I saw them acting like some of these role models that I had. And
Mm.
as it turns out, those qualities that you try to portray on the outward qualities, it does not translate as well
Mm.
as you think. What
Hmm.
is really needed is the inward stuff, and the
Yep.
inward stuff helps you when you develop that. It helps you develop and purport what looks like or the same qualities, but from your giftedness as far as God is concerned.
Yeah.
What you look like after you instill those in your own spirit, in your own mind, and put them to practice, it's going to look different a
Yeah.
little bit. The
Yeah.
principles will still be there, but it'll be
Mhm.
after the way God made you from your personality. So that was the takeaway for me, and I didn't learn that till, man, I was like 8, what, 28, 29. Man, Don, you ahead of your time, man. I was still I was still running around, just trying to figure things out at 20 and 21. Still in college at that time, but highly impressionable still. But I didn't really get that until later on in my 20s, close to 30, man. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Was there anybody, I'm thinking, um, even about you, Dion, when you said like you saw violence, unbridled violence, and there
Mm.
was kind of like that decision for you. Am I going to, is that how I'm going to be or respond, or am I going to want, do I want something different? I'm wondering, did you all have anybody that just kind of like you looked up to specifically that you just was like, and did you have people that just kind of pull you aside and said, "Hey, listen, let me kind of show you the ropes of this of life." Were we always looking afar, like from afar, like, "Oh man, I want to be like that," or you ever even have relationships with those people that you actually looked up to and they actually mentored you or coached you or kind of led the way for you?
So I can definitely go first on that one. One of the first things that I realized, once I had that experience as a kid, there was a point in time where there was quite a lot going on at the same time. But one of the things that stood out for me uh, was he was our principal, right? Um, he was he was a bodybuilder. He was active in the church. Um, he was very strict, and he had a very narrow view of how you should act. And for me, as a kid, that meant structure,
Hmm.
right? That meant that this is the way you want to carry yourself. He had a very upright characteristic about himself, and my principal in junior high, he he kind of he kind of put a seed in our head, right? Literally the entire school, because when we had in back where I'm from Belize, we have morning devotions. So yeah, the entire school has morning devotion. That's something that you don't get here in America, but
Yeah.
there they provide morning devotion. And so one of the seeds that he put in our head is, you know, where you are now, what would you like to see yourself become? And when you get there, what will you think about the journey that you took?
Mhm.
How how will how will you look back on your journey and feel about it, right? And so he says it's not so much about the end goal, but how you get there. And and he was very profound in every now and again he didn't speak much, but every now and again he would say something that was so profound you had to sit with it and kind of as a kid, right? As a kid to sit with that and say, wow, that's a lot. I don't even think about tomorrow. So for me to think about what I want further down in the future was kind of a obscure kind of a thought to have.
Mm.
But at the same time, even though he showed such, such a desire to kind of have us think about what we want to become in the future,
Mm-hmm.
and he made sure that he was very politically correct whenever he spoke to us. There was a time when a friend of mine had someone waiting for him at the gates of the school, and they wanted to harm him. And I told him I wouldn't let you go out there by yourself. And ultimately, what ended up happening was they had weapons, and they couldn't come on the school grounds, but they were waiting for us outside. And the moment our principal saw that, and his name is Mr. Kennedy, the moment Mr. Kennedy saw that, he walked out there and he walked straight up to them with weapons in their hands. And he said, anyhow you touch these children, I will have to break your arms. And I sat there and I'm like, not Mr. Kennedy.
Oh, wow.
Right. I'm like, not Mr. Kennedy, the person that's always smiling and wishing us a good morning and praying with us.
Kennedy, yeah.
Right. So it was kind of like, whoa, that whole thing kind of took me back a little bit, and I was like, not only is he considerate and he knows how to be soft when he needs to be soft with people, but he also knows when to be strong and when to be forceful.
Yeah.
And he didn't harm those guys, but I don't know what it was, but he stood there, spoke to them, and they went about their way with no violence whatsoever. And that was the one time I saw what could be a violent situation come to a very non-violent end. And it was, so from there on, that protective side of me, started growing. Not only to become someone that people can look up to, but I have to protect those who can't protect themselves.
So he didn't break anyone's arms that day. You didn't see him?
No, it was he said it with with a lot of authority, and I figured that translated to, we probably need to get up out of here.
Wow.
A lot of these old guys, we don't really know where they come from. He probably got a story. Virginity did probably broke some arms already. So
I wouldn't doubt it. It's almost like the entire demeanor changed in that moment. And that's, as it relates back to biblical masculinity, he had, for me, what it looked like is that he had so much faith that God wouldn't leave him alone.
That's right.
In that moment, that he can step to these guys who had machetes in their hands, right? Who had knives in their hands, and actually stop them in their tracks with no violence whatsoever. So he, to me, the way he handled that was alien to me, because, like I said, at the time there was violence going on all around me. So that was wild, the wildest thing I saw at the time.
What was the reactions of some of your of some of the friends of yours? It hit you a certain kind of way, but even at your age or at the time, have you ever just asked, hey man, what do you think of that whole situation that happened?
I mean, that's it. I don't like. I knew a few of the young ladies from the school were
Hmm.
like they were in earshot of what was going on, and so they saw what was going on, and they were from that point on they just had a newfound respect for him. I mean, I already respected him as who he
Mm,
was,
mm,
but to just based on his character as a principal, as a man who would take the entire school and pray, you know. But to see him stand up to imminent danger,
Yeah.
stare it down by himself, and deter that danger was it like once people started finding out what actually happened, they were like, "Yo, our principal is BA." They used
Mm.
not such
yeah,
a very Christian term, but
yeah, yeah,
you know
Yeah.
they knew that, hey, if you have problems, you don't want to have problems with him.
Mm.
So I think this goes to, I see Howard, he put in the comments that question, what does biblical masculinity look like for each of you? And I even hear in that story, there's a time where probably most, if not all men are asked to stand up and to be sacrificial, right? To put
Mhm.
yourself in front, in between harm and those you love, or those you feel responsible to. And I think about Christ, and
mm,
he has disciples that he's caring for, and he's building up, and he's trying to get them ready because he understands that he's only got 3.5. He understands he's not here for the long haul, like physically walking around with them for the next 40, 50 years. He understands that he's here for a short period, and then he's transitioning because the whole goal was to get this group of men ready to do the work that he entrusts and empowers them to do. And then the moment where it becomes like this crux between whether violence will overtake them or not, he stands in the middle, and he tells them when Judas has betrayed and they are in the garden, they come with their knives, machetes, and their weapons ready to arrest Jesus. He stands up and says, "Listen, I'm the one you're looking for. Let the others go." You know, this idea of just being bold enough to say, at this point, I gotta, I gotta stand between them and protect them.
yeah,
And you talk about definition of biblical masculinity. It's understanding when that moment comes, and it's about, as you said, Don, protecting and feeling that responsibility. That not only do I provide, not only do I lead, but I got to protect.
Mm.
yeah. And
Absolutely.
for me, I would say what for me, I think that the thing that his question was, what is biblical masculinity look for me? I would say in my personal experiences is literally sexual discipline, and
Hmm.
that has been for me because I understand that as men we have the power we have the power to we don't have the, well we don't have the power, but we are able to create life like we have the energy within inside us, the seed to create another life. And the fact that we have that, if we can control that and use that energy towards the things as far as pursuing God, reading His Word, studying, and having that, because as men, we have a lot of testosterone and a lot of energy, especially at my age. It's like if we're directing that our attention and our focus on the Word and on and seeking the Lord, He can lift us up to places that we would never have imagined possible,
Yeah.
just because we have that certain discipline. And especially like I remember I got the thought back from Bible study. What Pastor McLean said was that we're living in a microwave generation where everything's readily accessible. And I even seen that, and I came to like witness to that, especially in college at UCF. It's like, you know, it's like literally, it's like the devil throws these counterfeits, and it's just like you have to be able to have wisdom and discernment to see what it is, identify, and then move accordingly. Because when they see a man, is in his word, he has a great potential, a Jezebel spirit can come and try to deter you off that. And
Mm.
I feel like as a man, we have to literally learn to keep that energy within ourselves and understand that there is a great power that God has given us, and we have to use that power and energy towards glorifying His name and bringing people to Him. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's what
Amen.
that looks like for me.
Man, that's
Amen.
hard. I just like I hear that and I'm with you and I think about how hard that is. When you just said sexual discipline. Which this
Yeah,
is 2023, y'all. Like this is 2023. I think the temptations are on every side. I was watching something, and it was like some movie or something like that. And this guy, it's set back in back in earlier times before all of the access to technology and it being everywhere around you. And so he books this hotel, and then they have these risque magazines on in the hotel room on the table,
Mm-hmm.
like that was the access to the
Hmm.
temptation. Like you had to go somewhere and buy it, or it had to be in a magazine, or it had to
Mm-hmm.
be, that's not today. Like that's not today. You gotta like you don't have to search for it. It's gonna find you.
yep, yep,
And the need for discipline. I mean, it's so much, and that's just being uh, open. That's whether you single or married. Like
Mm-hmm.
hmm
the
Yeah.
discipline has to only grow more and more. And so I'm with you on that. I think that's huge.
yep,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, when it comes to biblical masculinity, for me, I look at the example of Elijah. Um, Elijah, for me, but particularly starting off with the account of Mount Carmel,
Mm,
right? So he was mighty and strong, powerful and confident on this mountain, and he was only as confident as he was because he knew God would show out at the end of the day.
mm,
Like he knew God wouldn't leave him alone. He knew that when he got up there and represented him, that God would just manifest himself and put all of the false prophets to shame. So he was extremely confident there, kind of jeering everybody, hey, I guess your God is asleep, right? Can't get the
yeah.
fire up. And then after that, he by himself slays all these prophets, outruns a chariot, but then only for the next day to get a message from the queen and then completely flees for his life.
Yeah.
Hides himself in a cave and tells God, I'm ready to die.
Yeah.
That
Wow.
instance right there, from the on a high point there in Carmel to a low point there in a cave somewhere, to me is exonerates, well, not exonerates, but exemplifies biblical masculinity. Somebody
Mm,
that's willing to stand for God,
yeah.
yeah,
someone that's willing to carry out God's what God would have him do.
Yeah.
And some would argue he was at the height of his calling on Carmel. And then on one point, then on the other side, be willing to tell God, look, I'm afraid.
Mm-hmm.
I'm afraid of this queen, of what it is that is about to happen here. And it would be best if you just, I'd be fine if you just took my life. Now, I'm not advocating for, for suicide or anything like that. But the principle is he was afraid and he confided in God,
Yeah.
and God had to renew his confidence.
Yeah.
Basically the whole thing with the fire and the big wind, and then let him know in that whisper that I am with you, and
Mm-hmm.
then motivated him to continue doing his work.
Yeah.
So, for me, in life as a man, that's kind of the example. You'll have your highs, and you're gonna have your lows, but you got to remember that God is with you through the highs and the lows,
Yeah.
and you got to be just as vulnerable with Him in the lows as you are in the highs.
That's right. That's right.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I think biblical masculinity to me um, is something that I've probably been chasing all the while, but never really realized that that's what I've been chasing. Um, I can remember from a very young age wanting to be a positive effect on the people around me, um, wanting to be, you know, that guy that people can depend on in tough times, you know. Um, Also, wanting to show others that, no matter what you do, no matter what happens to you, that God will always stand by your side.
Mm.
And sometimes you're not even the one walking, He's carrying you,
Yeah.
right? Because there were times where I found myself um, walking home late at night. I would probably be walking over 30, 40 blocks just to get home. And this is at your age, Don. I was doing this, and this is in New York. So
Mm.
obviously there was public transportation for me to do it, but
Mhm.
I was in a position where I didn't know what my next move should be. And what I did was I had a conversation with God through 40 blocks.
Mm.
Was it
Like
wait? This BK, was this Brooklyn or Bronx? I'm just trying to
this was walking from Manhattan to the Bronx.
mercy.
So
Wow.
so
Lord be with me.
you said how?
That's a wow. That's a wow.
No, that's also an appropriate question. How? What time of night was this? Was this after 10 or
I mean,
after
we're talking about probably around after 9,
after 9?
close to 10 o'clock at night. Just
Yeah.
having that walk,
Mhm.
simply because I was trying to figure out what my direction was.
Yeah.
At the
Yep.
time,
Yep.
for me, what happened is my dad said, "Look, you're 18 now. Two men can't live in the same house. You need to
Mm.
figure it out." Well, I wasn't 18 just yet, but I was about to become 18. And he said, two men can't live in the same house. You need to figure out what you're going to do. And
Wow,
so,
what are you doing? I'm on the camera. People can see you.
the
Have mercy.
Hey, Mom. Hey, Mom.
the conversation got too serious, huh?
Oh
Yeah.
man.
Hey, that was classic.
That's
She
right.
like, I'm about to clean this spot. Yeah, I don't care what's happening.
I don't care what you doing. We're gonna get this spot clean.
I know, man. Sorry
That's
about that,
that's
D. Go on, man. Go on,
no, no,
man.
no. You're good. You're good. Ultimately, you should have cleaned that spot. That's why that happened.
I'm trying to tell you.
God, goodness gracious.
Nothing's
Man,
gonna stop this cleaning. Nothing.
I mean, we're gonna have to hold you accountable now, buddy. All right. Well, so the thing was that I had this conversation every night when I would walk, right? And I didn't think that the conversation was doing much because I couldn't see what was coming. You know what I mean? I didn't know what the conversation was doing because I couldn't see what was coming.
Mm.
And ultimately, he put somebody in my path that helped me get to where I needed to be.
Mhm.
And just on a whim. He didn't know me, right? He knew me enough that he knew that I worked in the area, but he didn't know me. Like we never had a conversation before. Um, and he came up to me and he spoke to me and he told me, hey, the friends that you're hanging out with, you may not want to hang out with them. They're gonna bust that corner in in the next couple of nights, so don't hang out there with those guys. He's like, the guy that you're working for, he's a drunkard. If you really want to work somewhere and get more money, you know, he said, just come talk to me on this day. I'll help you out. And and at the time, because I wasn't making that much money, I spoke to him. I figured, I'm not going to be in jail, and I'm not going to end up, you know, being killed in any way. So what does it matter for me to just talk to him? So I went and I talked to him, and his name is Andre. Uh, Andre said, "Look, you, I've seen you around here. I didn't even know. And this is the reason why I say, you know, making sure that the perception of your character is always on the positive side. I didn't even know he was watching me, right? I didn't know that he knew of me, but he knew who I was. And he said, look, I'll take you down to this place. They need somebody. And ultimately, it was just working with a company that set up sound and, you know, sound stuff for like broadcasts. And so we're setting up the equipment and everything for these broadcasts and stuff. And they didn't, what they did was they didn't even ask me, do I have any knowledge? They said, go out, just do what we ask you to do. And at the end of the day, if you can do it, we'll bring you on full time just on the strength of this man introducing you to us. Right. So got me to a point where God literally put someone in my path that helped me out. And, you know, if you ever wonder what's your next step, have that conversation. Just have the conversation. Because one of the things that I realize is you're not going to know everything. You're not going to have all the answers, but you can always trust that God is going to be there for you. And even in a situation where, you know, there's situations where, you know, things go awry from time to time, you know, but if you always look to him, he's not gonna, it may not be exactly at the time that you want it to be, but it'll work out. Because trust me, I didn't like walking all them nights talking to him over and over, but I had to go through it.
It's something about how God gets you alone. And it'd be hard sometimes too, because sometimes when he gets you alone, it's not comfortable. You got to walk 40 blocks to be alone with God. You said that, and I remember, like, I used to be a manager at this restaurant, and when the store would close, like, I would be responsible for closing the store, but the last bus leaves only about 45 minutes after the store closes. And so I'm responsible for leading the team to literally wrap this restaurant up and get it ready for the next morning. So I'm telling these guys, we got 45 minutes because I got to catch my bus. I hardly ever caught that bus because it was hard to close that store down. So I had to walk. You know, buses don't run after certain times in Cleveland. So I had to walk. But it was, as you said, it was some of the most meaningful times. It was hard. It was cold sometimes walking. But you know, that song where it says, and he walks with me and he talks with me and he
tells me I am his own.
Yes, like sometimes you got to get us alone in order to have those conversations. And so those are precious.
I'm really glad you guys are actually talking about this right now, because two verses that have helped me get through this journey. Because, all right, before I even get into my experiences, Proverbs 16:9, it said, the mind of man plans his way, but the Lord guides his steps. That was one promise that I stuck to. And another one was Proverbs 20:24. He said, man's steps are ordained by the Lord. Why? He said, man's steps are ordained by the Lord. How can a man then understand his way? And with those two verses, I've seen that, back in, I think during the summer, I actually asked God to give me trials and tribulations. And I didn't know what I was asking for. But it's like, the only reason why I asked for that was to the intent of getting closer to him, because I felt like I wanted a relationship with God where me and him were like hip to hip, and I can go to him about anything and anytime, some trials and tribulations arise in my life. The first thing I do is turn to God. So that was the intent, but I feel like I wasn't clear, and God will give you what you ask for. He would give you what you ask for. And then during the summer, and I probably ended towards probably last month, I was going through those trials and tribulations, and I was questioning God, like, why? And I'm remembering I asked for this.
Hmm.
Why am I asking why? And then it's just like understanding that and seeing how how I've gone through the trials and tribulations. I was asking myself, okay, God, what now? Like where do you want me to go now? What did you want me to learn from what I've been through?
Yeah.
And after asking that, I literally this month entered a season of just isolation. And I was at first I was asking why, but I changed my mindset from why to more of what is he preparing me for?
Hmm.
Why is he putting me in this isolation season? What have I done or what did I go through in the trials and tribulations to teach me a lesson that will help me in the future? What blessing can he potentially, well, it's not my job to figure out what blessing he's trying to give me, but what is he trying to prepare me for so when I receive it, I can maintain it and, be a steward over whatever blessing he gives me. And I've seen that, and like reading his word and him putting me in this isolation season is teaching me a lot about myself, and it's teaching me to be in close communion with God, just like how Adam before he met Eve and before everything happened, he was just him and God.
Yeah.
And I feel
Right.
like men need that
Relationship.
season of just relationship, just you and God. So yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Agreed.
I never
Agreed.
asked for it, but it was definitely given to me. But yeah, I mean, because I always look at it like if you're not proactively working on it, life is gonna have you work on it.
yeah,
You know. Um, so one of the biggest things that I realize that also would be a big part of every verse I've ever read about being a man in the Bible starts with love.
Mm-hmm.
oh yeah,
Starts with love. And love don't necessarily means that you head over heels got the baddest, finest girl on the block. You know what I'm saying? That's I don't think that so love itself as a broader picture of it. Um, so one of the things or what I didn't notice that he noticed was uh the same character that I or the same person that I spoke about earlier, Andre, he noticed that I was teaching kids how to draw while I was working
yeah,
with the gentleman who decided that he was gonna drown his sorrows in spirits. Um, he noticed that his son had trouble doing math, long division in math, and while he was there doing his homework, I actually taught him how to explain why he did the long division the way he did. So by just those two things, he realized, okay, well, this person must have some type of you know good heart or whatever, and that's how it that's how he came to me, and he in turn helped me. So whenever you give love to others, whether you want it or not, people will love you back. And then there's some people who will try to deceive you, but that's all in the mix of things. When the devil see, oh, wait a minute, he's trying to become a biblical man. Hold
Mm-hmm.
on a minute. Hey, Becky, I need you to go over there and break that up real quick. You know, and whenever you get closer to God, that's when he tries to throw a wrench in your game plan. And I mean, it's always so I always lead with that first, right? I give people respect, and I give, I try to be as sincere, because there's one time I was walking in, and this is so a lot of these stories are going to be from New York. I was walking in Central Park in New York, and I've always taken lessons on doing first aid and so on and so forth, and saw these two kids crying and a lady laying down face down into the dirt in Central Park, and people are
Mm.
just walking by her. And I've never once in my life said I wanted to be a hero, right? That's not what I look to be. I look to always, God, how can you use me, right? That's what I look for. And once I saw that, I ran over. I must have been, I don't know, about 100 yards away from her. I ran over to her, leaned her over on the side, realized that she was having a seizure, and
Oh
her kids
no.
were crying. And the moment I held her up and I kept her up, then somebody else, a family member of hers, showed up because he was supposed to meet up with her. Um, he showed up and he got upset and he started yelling at me and said, "What are you doing?" I said, "She's having a seizure. I'm just trying to make sure she doesn't choke or anything." He immediately tries to put his belt in her mouth, and I said, "Please don't do that." And he starts yelling at me again. Another guy who's a doctor stops and he says, "I'm a doctor." And he says, "The guy's right. Do not put the belt in her mouth," you know, and so on. So it, I had 911 called. The gentleman, I could have been upset about the situation because the gentleman never said, the grown man who showed up never said thank you. He he basically was still wary of me. The two little kids uh, and little babies turned around and said thank you when they put their mom in the ambulance to take her to the hospital. And that's all I need. I don't need nothing else. You know, the kids saw what happened. They saw what was done, and they said thank you. And I wasn't doing it for the thank you. I was doing it because it was someone that was in need. Someone needed help, and God put me in the right place at the right time, where people
Mm.
were just walking by, and so I listened and I did what He asked me to do. Um, and a lot of times I tell people, you know, being a man is not about bravado. It's
Yeah.
it's mainly about your actions. You
Mm-hmm.
know, you can say a lot of things, but if you're not doing anything, what does it mean? It means nothing.
Yeah.
You know, so you have to live by those actions, and you have to be responsible for those actions as well. And I that's how I view that biblical masculinity. You know, sharing the love with others, not love in the sense of romantic love, but just loving your neighbor. You know what I mean? Um, the church is not just the people you go to church with. The church is everybody around you. So
Mm-hmm.
that's how I view it for myself, and it hasn't it hasn't failed me yet. So
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, we getting there, man. We ought to start as Dan would say, for Quad Squad, we putting our tray tables in the upright position, right? We getting ready to come in for that landing.
Yeah.
Uh what is something that we can all weigh in on, how you'd like to kind of sign off here as far as biblical masculinity?
Well, I think we named several words that I think fit, maybe build up a profile of the biblical man. And some of them that I heard were, um, they need to be providers.
Mm-hmm.
They need to be they need to model. Dion, you talked about doing. They need to model it. Mr.
Mm-hmm.
Kennedy modeled something. He didn't really have to say it. He did it, and you got the message.
Mm-hmm.
And discipline. I heard that. You got to be disciplined. Character. I think we can build that profile. And man, what I'd love, because we didn't even get into it on this one, but maybe our next one, we didn't talk about the opposite of the biblical man.
Mm.
More more of those toxic traits.
Mm-hmm.
Some of those things that if we look right now, we can build the profile all we want, but we know a lot of people who live in a way that maybe they define as, hey, no, this is the way you should be a man, and they'll bring some scriptures just like us to prove it,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and to really juxtapose and to contrast, like, okay, these are some profiles that we're saying, but there's some other models out there, and we got to scrutinize those. We got to critique them and really see, are they the way, are they the path forward? So maybe we have some, we have our next topic going in there. Let me also just add something I also heard, and I don't think we named it, but it was in there in the conversation, but that vulnerability, that ability to just be able to not be hard all the time, but to know, like, hey, listen, I need God. I need this person or that person. This thing is hard, it's not easy. And I don't have to act like it is. So that vulnerability is important.
For me, I would say the biggest thing that we can leave with is self-control. Like that's one word, I've heard a lot. We need it. It's very, very important as men, and having emotional intelligence as well, to recognize, if you have an emotion, what is it you're thinking about? Why is it making you feel that way? And how can you go about it to the point where you're not hurting yourself and others? Giving it to God. I've seen that giving everything to the Lord as a man has been the cheat code to life, because it gives you peace, security. It's like that's the quickest way a person can,
Say that one more time, D. Just for everyone else to say. You said, what is a cheat code in life? Yeah, run that back.
To God. The cheat code to life is giving everything to God. Any problem, any circumstance, and you have to be content with any circumstance you get put through, because sometimes God will put you through certain circumstances in life to, build you up to the person that he wants you to be and intended you to be, especially as a man. So giving it to God is the cheat code to life. And I really, really hope if anybody is here, they leave with that specific message. So yeah.
I love it.
Amazing.
I love it.
That's a great message. I know everyone have their own perception of what masculinity is, masculinity itself. But when we talk about biblical masculinity, we can't talk about it unless we talk about God and how he plays a big role in our lives. How Jesus Christ sacrificed for us so that we may be able to have grace. How Paul speak to the Corinthians and told them, they need to be watchful. They need to have faith. They need to be Christ-like. They all over the Bible. It gives you examples of what men should be. And we today, even though the Bible is one of the most sold books in the market, we still gravitate to popular culture. Popular culture still affects us in a lot of different ways, and I think what is important is that we have to have an archetype of what a good, God-fearing, biblical man is, and follow that archetype, because it's not easy doing it without God. In these times, in this era. So with that, I'm going to bring us to a close. It is definitely a conversation that we can have again. There's a lot of parts to it. We haven't even we didn't speak about the things that may not be Christ-like, right? We haven't spoke about those things that those different characteristics that may have us stray away from God. So that's just as important, so that you avoid those pitfalls. So that's something that we probably are going to go ahead and make a part 2 to this show, and try and provide some insight.
Let's make it happen.
All right.
Yeah.
But with that, I'm gonna ask you, Brandon, if you can close us out with a prayer.
Well, Steph,
we much appreciate.
Well, Steph, let's pray. Heavenly Father, Lord, thank you for this day, and I want to thank you for this conversation. Thank you for bringing us all together to talk about how we must conduct ourselves as men. And I pray that through our messages that you gave us, Father, that we were able to help someone that was in earshot of them. But altogether, Lord, help us to continue to grow as men and not turn away from you, Lord, but to embrace you and to obey your word. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Yes,
Gentlemen,
sir.
I appreciate your participation. I appreciate you guys being a part of this. I've learned a lot, even from Don, who was a last minute addition, but he came with the heavy hitters. You know
Yes,
what I'm
sir. Yes,
saying?
sir. Yes, sir.
So,
Yes, sir.
but
Yeah.
and as a young man who already have principles, I hope you carry that on to others and affect others in a positive way as well.
Amen.
Exactly. Thank you for that. Thank
All
you.
right,
Good to go,
gentlemen.
man.
When are we,
Thank you very
when are we
much.
coming back, Dion?
So we should be coming back within 2 weeks from today.
Let's do it.
Brandon, if you could pull up that date for me and just 2 weeks
Yes, sir.
from today.
2 weeks
26.
from today is the 26th.
All
Appreciate
right.
that. Yeah, 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 yeah.
The 26th. I will be available on the 26th to get into some of the bad stuff. Yeah, the pitfalls.
The
I can
pitfalls.
tell you five right off the top of my head. Don came with the five principles. I could tell you five pitfalls.
Well, here's the question right here. What are the top issues women have with us men? I mean,
You're not ready for. They're not ready for that, man. They're not ready for that. Not on our second show. Not on our second show. They're not ready for that, man.
what are the top issues that they have, the gripes
Not
they have with us?
They're
And
not
we gotta talk
ready.
about it, man. We gotta
None of
talk
these
about it.
people listening are ready for that. They're just not. Right after Thanksgiving, nah, man, that's too bad. That's gonna mess with my stomach, man. That's gonna give me. Somebody get the antacids up in here, man. This is gonna.
Yeah. No, we gotta dive into that. That's gonna be. We gotta take a hard look, at our.
I'm sure
Are they
I'm
wrong?
sure they're gonna be more than willing to offer up some topics for us.
Oh, here you go. Here you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Oh, listen,
Well,
well,
if
I'm
that's
looking
the
forward
case,
to
then
it.
all ladies or everyone that can hear us, ladies, we need you on site. We need you
Yes.
in the place on the 26th. Come on out and join us. YouTube, Facebook, wherever you find yourself. Come on out and join us. Weigh in, and please tell us exactly what has been your gripe with men. I'll be monitoring, but slow it down for me. I don't think I can catch everybody, but I'm gonna try.
Yeah.
Slow it down. But
So
I look
November
forward to it.
26th, 9 a.m. We started a little bit late today, but we'll start at 9 a.m. Finish at 10.
Yes. Let's
I'll
make it
own up
happen.
to it. It's because of my technical difficulties that we started a little late. I had a
Oh, you
mic
good,
issue,
man.
so we had to
Good.
resolve that real quick. But
So
yeah, 9 a.m. the 26th, we should be good to go. Um, you know, Men, if you have different pitfalls that you want us to speak on, and you're in the chat, go ahead and throw some pitfalls in the chat.
yeah.
Uh,
Sir. Yes, sir.
Women, just grab us by the collar when you see us.
Just, now just know we got to set this up, because if we're going to talk about the top issues that women have with
Uh-huh.
us, then that means that a later show has to be the top issues men have with. Now that's gonna get me in trouble. That's gonna get me in trouble.
I'm good. I'm already married, so I'm
Did you
straight. You
did
know
you
what I'm
did
saying?
you say did you
Y'all, y'all
did you
can't
say
hurt
we're
me.
did you say we're going to be holding women accountable? Is that what you just said?
We should end the show right now. I think we should.
I thought that's what you said, but I guess that's not it. Okay.
I'm not. I'm just throwing out topics. That's all I'm doing.
What's that disclaimer? What is it? The thoughts of Dion or whatever are not necessarily the thoughts of the
That's
rest
right.
of the.
That's right.
Hey
Let's
man,
make that,
it's gonna be good. It's gonna be good.
yeah.
And no technical issues in the future. So we'll be on time and get you guys deep into the subject.
Let's make
But
it happen.
thank you guys for coming on, and we'll see you then.
Let's leave. All
All
right,
right,
y'all. God bless.
You guys.
Leaving
all
the
right.
studio. Mm.